Okay, thank you for joining us. My name is Ellen Dillon. I'm the Director of School Breakfast Programs for Action for Healthy Kids. This is School Breakfast in the Classroom Beyond Elementary Schools. And thank you for joining us for this webinar. The logistics, just to make sure everyone's set up, you can listen via your telephone or speakers, but everyone is muted by default. So you don't have to worry about any background noise at your school or in any of the locations that you might be in. You can submit a question, and we encourage you to do so. You just need to click on the right-hand panel on your screen and click on the questions and enter in your information that you'd like to ask. We are recording the call, and the link to the recording as well as the slide deck for the webinar will be shared within 2 business days. I will be traveling out of town, so I hope to get this out to you tomorrow. As I mentioned, my name is Ellen Dillon. I am the Senior Director of Programs for Healthy Kids, and I oversee all of our school breakfast efforts and work. Today's agenda is going to look a little bit like this. I'm going to give you an overview of who Action for Healthy Kids is and our role in terms of facing and fighting childhood obesity and working with schools. I'll give an overview of breakfast in the classroom and what breakfast in the classroom typically looks like in elementary schools. And then we'll talk a little bit about secondary schools and how challenging a beast, and we can refer to a secondary school as a beast, can be and working with it in terms of many things, but especially when talking about breakfast and school breakfast participation. We're going to have 2 district highlights, Dallas Independent School District as well as Springfield Public Schools in Massachusetts. And again, we'll be pausing periodically, but more importantly, we'll make sure we reserve some time at the end for Q&A so that your questions can be answered. Today's webinar is going to be pretty informal, and we'll do it very much in a question-answer format. So there will be a lot of opportunity for feedback and jumping in and asking some questions. So let's go ahead and get started. So who is Action for Healthy Kids? For those of you who are not aware, Action for Healthy Kids is a national nonprofit, and we were formed when Dr. David Satcher, the then Attorney General in 2002, first identified that childhood obesity was an epidemic. And what we do is we really focus on schools to help make schools healthier places so that children are learning and able to become healthier and more productive members of our society. We're made up of lots of different people. We're made up of moms and dads and teachers and other stakeholders related to schools. We're made up of professionals and other partners that are working in the field, whether it be hunger-related or obesity-related, to help make schools a healthier place. So why are we focusing on schools? So schools are the place where most of our students spend a majority of their time. From the age of 5 through 18, we know that students are spending a great deal of their time at schools. Schools are the location for a lot of role models and behaviors to be formed and habits to be put in place from an early age. And we also know that creating a healthier community is important and will impact us as we go through the rest of our lives. We find that working with schools is really the place that we can have the greatest impact in making changes, not only on just the student level, but on the families as well as the community levels too. So for those of you who don't know, this is called the learning connection. It means it's very simple. It's good food plus active bodies equals kids equipped for success. And Action for Healthy Kids created a document, and we'll reference that when we send you the information after the webinar about the learning connection that you can share with your school stakeholders, your parent stakeholders, and others. But bottom line is, and most of you who are on the call are related to or involved with school nutrition, you know that good food is the key to success, especially when it relates to school breakfast. Helping kids move more and be active during the school day and throughout their lives is important. And when students have that opportunity to eat a healthy breakfast and lunch, have access to healthy food, they're able to move more during the school day, then they're more able to perform better academically. And so school breakfast is what we're focusing on today, and it's, like we all know, is the most important meal of the day. So what I want to do is give a little overview of what breakfast in the classroom looks like and what is breakfast in the classroom. Often we find that breakfast in the classroom is brought to elementary students. We see it most often in elementary schools. And it's brought to the classroom for students to participate in breakfast. So rather than students going to the cafeteria, they're able to have breakfast brought to them in their classroom. This model creates the highest impact, increasing participation at the greatest level, meaning that more kids are eating breakfast. By feeding children, more children being fed, it really does create more things than just a participation impact. It increases test scores, decreases tardy students, increases attendance. Students have greater focus in class, and we also see fewer discipline issues. Our partner, No Kid Hungry, through Share Our Strength, worked with Deloitte, and they did a study of the number of students who are having improved impacts and outcomes related to academics based on eating school breakfast. So when we look at this, we are able to see that there is data that proves that it's not just anecdotal, it's not just something that we hear through our, somebody's,
now you
hold on one second. I'm just going to mute our speakers for just a few minutes because it seems like we have a little bit of feedback. And then, let me go back. Sorry. We're getting a little ahead of the game. And so all of this is not just anecdotal knowledge, things that we know that we see in our schools every day, but it has been proven. Students are doing better on math tests. They were scoring 17.5% higher when they had eaten a school breakfast. When students are able to attend school more often, they're doing better academically. They're more likely to be graduating. So all of these outcomes are really key to why a lot of schools have made the change to breakfast in the classroom at the elementary level. And in addition, by feeding more children, they're also increasing their revenue coming in from their reimbursements from their state agencies through the USDA. So it really is a benefit to not just the students, but it's also a benefit to the budgets of the school districts as well as the academic performance of students. Well, what is going on at the middle and high school when it comes to school breakfast? We see historically a much lower breakfast participation at the middle and high school levels. Even though they might be participating in lunch, there's a greater discrepancy between lunch participation and breakfast participation of all students, and especially those that are qualifying for free and reduced meals. In addition, we also see that in many districts there is a focus on elementary schools, and they're not so much not interested, but they're not as willing to make some of the leaps to middle and high schools that they do at the elementary school level. The biggest thing that we see as students get older is that breakfast becomes a choice. It's not something that mom or dad has said to Susie and Johnny, we need to eat breakfast at school today. It becomes a choice matter. So they can choose to eat, they can choose to go hungry, they can choose to grab breakfast elsewhere. They can make their choices in a lot of different ways. And also, we know at middle and high school there's a lot more issues related to what students are seeing among each other, and there's a stigma related to eating school breakfast. Some schools and students feel that it's only certain children that are able to or that are going to participate in a breakfast program, and And if it's them, they may not choose to be them, or they might not want to be participating because of the stigma. There are also some other issues that impact schools, and high schools and middle schools are related to participation. So schedules. We know that middle schools and high schools tend to start much earlier in the day than many of our elementary schools. And these schools are starting earlier in the day, and many of these students aren't interested in eating a school breakfast too early in the morning, or because they have to leave early, they're not able to have breakfast at home like they might normally have. There's also freedom of choice, and we've talked about that. Parents aren't telling the children to eat, and then instead they're able to make their choices. We've talked about the stigma. There's also the health and weight sensitivity. Many high school students are concerned about their health, and they do want to eat healthy. And being able to emphasize the health focus of school meals is important, and helping students to identify that eating a school breakfast is actually a way to decrease obesity versus increasing weight gain or obesity. And there are other preconceived ideas. Other stakeholders, not just in food service, but other stakeholders aren't as concerned or don't think they have to change participation at the high school level. You know, they'll focus much more on the elementary school students because it is an easier process. It's an easier sell for schools. But when it comes to middle school and high school, it is a little bit more of a work in progress. And making those changes can be sometimes a struggle. So what do school alternative models look like at middle and high school? Well, they can look a lot of different ways. We do see that grab and go is often a model used at, at middle and high schools. Oh my goodness. These are where a kiosk or cart is set up in a very centralized location, and students are taking with them. And when students and participation is highest is when students are able to take it to their classroom with them. Also, there's a second chance breakfast. It tends to be much more utilized in middle and high schools, where there is some flexibility in schedules rather than in elementary schools. So this is a mid-morning break. Maybe it's after first period or homeroom, when everyone has an opportunity to participate in breakfast. We've also seen a rise in reimbursable vending machines, which is a great, again, gives students a feeling of choice and power and being able to choose their breakfast, and it gives them a feeling of independence. Now, all of these models have demonstrated success, and but they have definitely some limitations, some of which are related to staffing, because those kiosks often include having a person at those high travel locations. And if we also deal with high schools, they're very large. Some of our largest high schools that we've worked with in the past have 3,000 students, and one cart isn't going to be able to sufficiently move students through the experience of grabbing their breakfast and going. So again, you become very limited in these some of these models. Now, while they do have increases, and we recognize they do, what we're also seeing is that they have limitations that aren't allowing them to get to some of the higher participations that we see in elementary schools with a breakfast in the classroom program. So if we think about it, we have to say, if breakfast in the classroom is the best model for participation in elementary schools, then why aren't we doing it in secondary schools? And today we're going to have the benefit of hearing from two districts that are in different locations of the country, but are using breakfast in the classroom at the upper grade levels. And I'm just going to do a quick check of sound. Just a minute. I want to make sure Xenia from Dallas joined us a little bit late, and I want to make sure that we're able to hear each other well. Xenia, I just want to make sure you're on and able to participate.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you for having me.
Great, thank you. And Kathleen Kelly from Springfield Public Schools in Massachusetts.
Yes, I'm here too. Thank you.
Awesome. Real quick, before we get started, I was wondering if we could just take a moment, Xenia, if you would just give a little background on your role at Dallas Independent School District, and Kathleen do the same.
Sure. And actually, I would like to also introduce Allison Idris. She was so kind to join us this afternoon. She has had some experience working with the BIC program at the school level with the operational team. And so just say hi, Allison.
Hi, I'm Allison.
Great, Allison. Thanks for joining us. Great.
So,
and then Kathleen?
Yes. I just wanted to say that I'm fairly new in Dallas ISD. I've been here for 4 or 5 months. However, I've been in the child nutrition industry for about 15 years, and I've been working with the learning about the history of how Dallas ISD have worked through their BIC program, which has been very successful. And I'm very happy to share our successes with everyone in this afternoon.
Excellent. Thank you, Xenia. And am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Yes, you are correct. Thank you.
Great. No problem. And then Kathleen.
I'm working with Sodexo, and our company is contracted by Springfield Public Schools, and we manage all their schools along with some parochial and charter schools. We have 66 schools altogether that we manage, and that goes from pre-K up to grade 12. So we wanted to get everybody into BIC as quickly as we could, so we started, going around to the principals and, telling them what it's all about. And we picked a few that we thought would be interested in all, and it's just mushroomed. We now have about 75% of our schools out of the 66 on BIC now.
Wow, that's amazing. That's great to hear. All right, so let's get started. So you kind of got us started, Kathy, with talking about your district history with breakfast in the classroom. How long have you been incorporating breakfast in the classroom in your schools? And did you start out with your elementary schools?
We did start with elementary. That was back in 2012, and we had 3 or 4 on BIC. Some of them were older schools that didn't even have cafeterias, so BIC was the ideal situation because these kids were eating in their classroom anyway. So this way the breakfast was brought to them. There was no, having to carry it upstairs or, falling and spilling, anything like that. So it was very welcome in some of these older schools. And then as the years went on, we just continued to grow until we thought, well, we might as well approach the secondary schools, and we might as well get into all those. Because once we started meeting with more and more principals, and the principals were talking among themselves, saying that this is great, we wouldn't go back to the old style, the traditional cafeteria breakfast, and they're now coming to us and asking us to start breakfast in the classroom.
Great, that's super to hear. And Xenia and Allison, and in Dallas, I'm pretty familiar with the work that's been done there. Can you tell us a little bit about how breakfast in the classroom got started and your progress in terms of working with schools in terms of breakfast in the classroom?
So the BIC program here in Dallas ISD, it's been implemented very slowly since more than 5 years. However, was in 2012 when Dora Rivas, former executive director, she took the initiative on herself to go in front of the board and have the district policy changed to implement this program in all the schools. This change made BIC a board-mandated strategy for students' improvement, and basically over the last 3 years is when we have seen a huge increment from 4% in high schools to a 75% increase since 2012.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that idea of a mandate from a board to go to breakfast in the classroom in all schools was really life-changing in Dallas, and made such a huge difference where, you know, like you said, they've been rolling out for years in a small process, but then really got just a huge support from their board. And when those mandates happen, whether they be state legislation or city mandates regarding from a Board of Ed, it really helps to provide the nudge that sometimes needs to take place for some to make that leap, because it has to happen. So kudos to Dallas and the work that happened there over the last few years to make breakfast in the classroom part of the school day.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
That has been the key to the success of the program.
Great. So we talked a little while ago, we talked about how grab and go has normally been the process for high schools and middle schools in terms of an alternative model. I think, you know, from my experience working with schools around the country, I think folks think it's the quote-unquote easier sell or the easier process to make that change. What would you guys say, you know, how did you make your decision to move to breakfast in the classroom? And we'll start with Kathy in Springfield.
Well, we did try it at one of our middle schools, but one of the biggest problems we had was accountability, because the kids were all coming up at once and just grabbing and going, and we were having trouble checking the rosters off so we could, you know, find out if they had a reimbursable meal. And then the other problem, another middle school, we had trouble with trash all over the place. The kids would take off with it, and there'd be wrappers and things all over the floor and outside. And, you know, this way with breakfast in the classroom, everything's contained in the classroom, and it's much more organized, whereas teachers there to, like, supervise. As the students take a reimbursable meal, she just checks their name off on the roster. So it went over much better to move into BIC and not go with the grab and go for us.
And that's what I hear too. Allison and Xenia, how about in Dallas?
So in Dallas, we have been doing kiosk carts where the kids can grab and go. They can grab their milk and grab their main entree, and for accountability, they put their ID number into the POS. So every kiosk has a computer that acts as a register but without money. And that has been successful because they can still take it to the classroom, and we're still providing trash bags. We're doing that at high school, but this year we've realized that the students really like that mainstay of coming into the cafeteria and getting a hot meal. So we're in the process of piloting having a hotline at every high school in addition to kiosk and delivery to the classroom. And it's going to be all hot items like biscuits and gravy, oatmeal, sausage biscuits and pancakes, things like that, just because they really do like those hot items. And with a grab and go method, we can keep them hot, but it's not the same as coming straight off the line.
Gotcha. And then you had a middle school that was, I think, one of your first that piloted breakfast in the classroom. You had a principal from that school that created a video, and I can't remember the name of that middle school. I visited it about a year ago. I think they had started with a grab and go and then just found kind of similar to Kathy's experience where it just wasn't as successful, and they ended up moving to breakfast in the classroom. Some of the pictures in the next few slides show some of their grab bags, their insulated bags that come and are delivered to the classroom. Did you either of you have any experience with that breakfast in the classroom program where the delivery was brought to the classroom?
Yes. Actually, I was an intern here last year, and I was a supervisor at an elementary school that did do delivery to the classroom. So we did use the same bags, and we'll fill one bag with hot items and one with the cold items, which are milk, juice, and fruit. And it'll just either be given directly to the teacher or left outside their door. And it is the most successful method, just because it's given right to them. The teachers don't have to do any work to get the food, but it is very labor intensive. And one of the problems that we have as a district is that we have a lot of vacancies in the cafeteria, and that manpower just isn't there. So it causes a lot of stress for the cafeteria staff to try to get those bags out in the time limit that they're given when those students are just coming in, so that they have it right when school starts. But it is something that we are going to keep, and we still, even last year, we're rolling it out to all of the high schools, because high school participation has been consecutively low, much lower than at elementary and middle. So that is the best way to get it to go up. We also started our smoothie pilot, where we have a breakfast smoothie that comes with a breakfast whole grain bar to create a reimbursable meal. And before last year, we only had it available in the cafeteria because it was made in a smoothie machine. But this year, we've also introduced it to delivery to the classroom, and we have special designated carts that are just for the smoothie. So those are now being delivered to the classroom also.
Great. Great. That's great to hear. All right, so let's keep moving along. So when you're making the changes, and this picture on the right-hand side is the middle school that I was referencing, where the carts were, or the insulated bags were left at the school, and then the picture on the left is from one of the high schools in Springfield. So what special considerations did you have to take into consideration when you were planning for breakfast in the classroom at the secondary level? And we'll start with Dallas, Allison, and Xenia. Anything that when you're making that original change at the middle and high school level, anything that you needed to consider different than for elementary schools?
Well, the special considerations, number one, is the schedule, the time that the kids have. Also, the extent of the campus. If it's a really, really big campus, we have campuses here that have more than 200, no? Around 100, 150 classrooms. That's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, and then the manpower, making sure that we have enough staff to cover every classroom. And lastly, of course, the training, making sure that everybody is on board with the training.
Another issue that we have with middle school that isn't as much of a problem with elementary is that with elementary, we can leave the bags right outside the door and not worry that it's going to be tampered with. But with middle school, this is a problem at every school, that students will open the bags and take items out of it. So when it comes time to serving it, they're missing a number of meals. So just that accountability also with that you can't maybe just leave it right outside the door.
In some schools, of course.
In some schools.
In some schools, gotcha. And Kathy, what about in Springfield? Were there any special considerations? Did you have similar considerations or anything different?
Yeah, again, the younger kids in elementary, they're more accepting of something like this. They think it's a fun thing to do, and also the older secondary students, we really had to get them on board. So what we did with our largest high school that we started, BIC, we actually did a sample BIC breakfast in 2 classrooms one morning, and we actually had the real breakfast and everything there for them. And these were journalism students. So what they did is they had their breakfast, and then they wrote some articles about BIC, put it in the school newspaper. So that was a great boost for us because on day one, these kids and the entire school were all psyched up about getting this breakfast. And it was much, we have CEP here, so it's a free breakfast for everybody. And they saved a lot of money because now they didn't have to stop at Dunkin' Donuts on the way into school. So I'm sure they lost a lot of business, but it was to our advantage. And the other thing we had to consider, the same as in the Dallas situation, we have to make sure those bags are inside the room because when the kids are coming into the hallways, they will open the bags and just help themselves. So our larger schools, they gave keys to the Sodexo staff that delivers the bags. So we go in, drop the bags, and then we lock the door again until the teachers arrive. So that was a big consideration.
Great. Do either of you have students help with delivery? I know at the elementary school levels I've seen where the students will pick up the insulated bags or have a rolling cart that will bring them to their classroom. Do any of your schools utilize students to help with that process?
At elementary in Springfield, because there's too much liability, because some of our schools have like 3 floors but no elevator. So the Sodexo staff does all delivery and retrieval of the bags. The students don't do anything.
Gotcha. And Xenia and Allison?
At elementary, most of our schools don't get additional help in picking up the bags. At middle school, we have student teams, green teams, or other clubs that make helping out and forming a sense of community at the school important. So they actually do help out picking up the bags and delivering it. So that makes it a lot easier for our staff to just get their work done, and they can start lunch. There is that shortfall though with elementary because a lot of the children are so young that carrying a bag or being responsible for something like that, because we do also include meal count forms with our bags, we have to make sure that gets back or that it was filled out before that bag is taken.
So as we're talking in terms of equipment, so you both are using insulated bags for your breakfast. Do you have any other special equipment that was needed?
In Springfield, we have ice sheets also for our blue bags or our cold bags for the juice and the milk, anything perishable. So we have these ice sheets that just cover the whole bag, and then we put the lid on and we zip those shut, and so they'll stay nice and cold for quite some time. And then we had to consider the layout of the school. That was a big thing. The schools that have the luxury of an elevator, we got flatbeds, and we'd load like a half a dozen or more bags on a flatbed, bring them up on the elevator, and then go room to room. The schools that don't have the luxury of an elevator, they manually carry the bags up the stairs, and then we have like smaller carts on each floor, so they'll load all the bags and then go door to door for the delivery. So we had to make sure we had enough, flatbeds or the metro carts, whatever was, suitable for that school. And then we also equip all of our classrooms with waste baskets and the high-grade garbage bags, so everything's disposable, goes in those bags. Custodian just go room to room, pick up the bag, and he's done. Then the other thing, we also provide wipes, like the pull-up wipes for all the students so they can clean their hands before and or after the meal, clean their desk, whatever. So those are some of the other things. The elementary schools, we provide them with little dustpans and brooms. So if somebody's Cheerios go on the floor, they can sweep them up because, again, the little kids like to do things like this. Secondary kids, not so much. But we got equipment. And the large garbage barrels, too, we asked the custodian, because we always had the custodians in all these, talks we had with them prior to the start of it. And we would get them the big 50-gallon barrels that are on dolly wheels so he can just push his barrel from room to room when he's picking up those bags. So we incorporated everybody and got everybody's input on what equipment do you need, and that's how we planned everything for each of the schools.
Great. And Xenia and Allison, I know in Dallas, especially at that middle school with those bigger bags, they had large carts that they were using and moving along through the hallways. Like you said, with 100 classrooms to deliver to, you have to have some type of mechanism to get those carts or those bags to the classrooms. Was there anything else that you also included in equipment that you made sure schools had?
No, we use the flatbed carts at all levels for BIC. We also include little hand wipes, individual hand wipes for the students if they get their hands messy, and we include their reusable hand towels, or well, they're for cleaning the tables so that the teachers can do that, and we include that every day, along with trash bags to dispose of the waste, and our staff picks up all the trash bags at the end of breakfast.
Great. All right, so let's keep moving on. So as you were thinking about and as you're rolling out breakfast in the classroom in the secondary school, we know there's definitely stakeholders that you need support and buy-in from. So thinking about the issues that you may have had related to the first launch of these, I mean, now we're hearing from, you know, Kathy, you mentioned that principals are coming to you asking for it, but in the beginning, when you really kind of had to sell this process a little bit more, what were some issues that you had or some positives that you had when you're working with different stakeholders? And we'll start with Springfield, talking about principals. So Kathy, tell us, you know, what did you have to do to get some of your upper level principals on board?
Well, one thing the big concern with a lot of them is some of our schools are older schools, and they were concerned, would this draw food spills, would that draw insects, mice, rodents, whatever. So we had to assure them that everything was disposable. We would provide, you know, waste baskets and trash bags, so everything would go in those waste baskets at the end of the meal. Any leftover food would go back to the cafeteria in those bags. So there wouldn't be any food laying around. That was a big concern of most of them. The other thing is they just, you know, a new thing like would all the students, you know, go to class on time, and would we be able to deliver everything on time so it ran really smoothly and class would start on time. So we pretty much had to assure them that we had the manpower to do it and that we had, you know, discussed everything, we planned it carefully so that everything would, you know, go off without a hitch. That was their biggest concern.
Great. And Zenny and Allison, anything that you had to do to get the principals on board in Dallas?
Well, as we shared at the beginning, the first step was to have the board policy changed. However, still with that change, there's always some principals that they don't like distraction in the classrooms. They think that their job depends on the state testing scores, so they don't want any distraction for the students. And at the beginning, they were a little resistant. But as the time passed, and just by talking with the other principals and listening to the success stories and the results from student achievements and things like that, that has helped that most of our schools are now in the program, if not all of them.
Yeah, I think, you know, principals are the greatest, you know, advertising component that you can utilize, and because they talk to each other, they have principal meetings. Yeah. And I remember, I guess it was about a year ago in Dallas, they held a principals meeting where the principal of that middle school got up and shared and said, we need to all be doing this. This is going to make a huge difference in our students' lives as well as in our schools, and was just such a huge proponent for the Breakfast in the Classroom program that more schools started because of her vocal selling of the program, so to speak. So yeah, I think principals, and once you get their support, you know, they're just so invaluable to getting others on board. How about when we're talking about cafeteria and food service staff? I mean, this is a change to what they're used to, and sometimes that, you know, is a scary thing for people to make those changes. Allison and Xenia, was there anything that had to be done in Dallas when making the change at the middle school and high school levels for breakfast in the classroom?
When we were piloting the middle school and high school BIC rollout, it was important that someone was there to train the staff. So schools that had already started it would come over. They would send a supervisor over to just show the staff how it's done, how it can be done easier. And there was pushback to schools that were getting into the program because it is more work. Serving out of the cafeteria is much easier than packing a bag, filling out the meal count form, and making sure it gets to the classroom with the correct number of students. But especially at our level, when we train on BIC all throughout the year, and we always make sure that they understand that it's really good for the kids and that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. And so they understand that this is just part of our cultures, that we want to increase our breakfast participation, and this is how we have to do it. The delivery to the classroom is the most effective method, and part of what we try to tell them is that participation is kind of job security. So that really gets them on board as far as just being a part of this program.
And you nail it on the head. I know sometimes there's a lot of worry about changing of the workload, but with more participation, you said it, it's job security, and it also brings in additional staff, because the more you're serving and the more that are getting paid for, then the more that you could have additional half-time staff or full-time staff being added to the role. So I think that's an important piece too. Good point. And Kathy, anything different that you guys might have done with dealing with cafeteria and food service staff?
Yeah, again, we had to reassure them that it was going to work out, and we did full training with all of them, and then we helped them, showed them how to pack the bags and, you know, how to arrange things in the bag so it fit nicely. And then the ones that had to carry the bags upstairs, we got them all back belts, so to protect their backs and everything, and they just sort of worked it out. And we you know, stood by them. The managers went to any of the schools that were opening, especially the larger ones, to begin with, and we helped them out to make sure that they stayed on schedule and everything was done on time. But everything smoothed out, and they just accepted it. Some of our schools, some of the people that worked at a school that was starting BIC, they would bid out to another school, but then pretty soon that school would start BIC, so it's like you can run from it, but you can't hide from it. So most of them, you know, they're on board by now because they realize it's going to be in the whole district. We plan to have the whole district on board by next year.
Wow, that's great. Great. Okay. And then thinking about teachers. So, you know, we know that from the beginning, teachers can be a barrier, but they can also be a boon and make things a really positive experience. Did you have to do anything special when rolling this out in the upper grades when dealing with teachers? Kathy?
Well, again, we did a full training with all the teachers. We'd get them together in their auditorium or whatever just to go over everything and answer questions. The biggest barrier we had is some of the teachers didn't want to have to check the names off in the roster, you know, once the student had a reimbursable meal, which is very important because that's how we get our reimbursement for the government. So we did get a little resistance from a few of those, but most of them, the majority, were on board with that, and they loved it because they could see that the kids, especially the younger kids, they no longer had to wait in line. There was no fighting in line, and they were getting a breakfast, and you know, the quietness of their classroom with their peers, and it was more relaxed and less stress even for the kids. So they were. It takes a while, but they were on board, and we have a specialist now that she does specifically goes around to all our BIC schools, and she observes to make sure that they are doing that right, or if there's a substitute teacher, excuse me, or a new teacher, and that's her job throughout the year, just to monitor these different rooms at all the schools to make sure everybody's on track.
Great. And Allison and Xenia, anything that you do or did to assure teachers or to help them make this transition?
So at the beginning of the year, we have trainings for the teachers. We explain very well because we have a somewhat complicated meal count form that has changed since last year. So retraining on how to fill that out correctly was done. Some of the teachers don't like the mess that comes with eating breakfast in the classroom. So we try to send cleaning supplies with our bags so that kind of curbs that dislike. But we always drive home that this is for the children, and this is the most effective way. And sometimes the teachers do not correctly fill out the form. So our supervisors have been trained to go, or either they will go back to the classroom or they will have someone else go and have them correctly fill it out. So, after the first 5 times of doing that, they realize if I don't correctly fill it out, they're going to come and have me do it and interrupt class. So that it hasn't really been as much of a problem. At the beginning of the year with new teachers, that's standard that there will be a few errors, but as school rolls on, it really runs smoothly.
I recall in Dallas you had posters or signage in each classroom to remind everyone what a reimbursable meal looked like. Are you still using that in your school?
Yes, we do. And we actually have come out with every way that you can make a reimbursable meal with what is provided. And we have pictures so that there is no mistaking what components can make a reimbursable meal. So we have those that we've provided, and we also have done several breakfast promotions that really give something back to the schools. So we'll do ones that have free cameras or gift cards, pep rallies, things like that, so that they really enjoy the program.
And is that unique to the middle and high schools that you might not do at the elementary, or is that something you do at all levels?
Well, last year we did a video contest, and we had the students using their iPhones. So that's not something that you would really see at the elementary level, and they submitted it to our website. So, and it also got posted on our main district web page. So that's something that really gets older students involved in eating breakfast and also promoting it.
Great, great. And then lastly, unless there's something in other areas to talk about, but I think Kathy, you had mentioned about custodians, and making sure that they were involved in the planning process at the school level. Xenia and Allison, did you guys incorporate your custodial staff in planning or have any special considerations when working with them?
So our custodial services department, they are not required to assist with picking up trash or cleaning in regards to breakfast or lunch. At some schools, you have custodians that will help out, but the director of custodial services is always invited to our meetings so that they know what is going on, but we really take that responsibility on ourselves.
Got it. Got it. And then Kathy, in terms of custodians, you know, you mentioned a planning process and making sure they had the equipment that they needed. Were those equipment requests from them, or was that something that was just more of a standard? These were things you knew they were going to need, or was it something special that they were looking for?
No, it was more like what we told them, you know, you're going to need these big, large barrels, and, you know, what kind of barrel do you want? Do you want, you know, a lid on it, or like some of them have the tilt carts? So we gave them a choice, but we told them these are the tools you're going to need. And the reason that the custodians bought into it is now they don't have to clean the floors all over the cafeteria and all the tables. All they do is go around and pick up a bag of trash. They loved it. But one custodian had the mistaken idea that he had to deliver all the bags and had to pick them all up. So that was just, you know, he had heard a false rumor or whatever, so including him in the first discussion was very important to clear up this misconception. And after that, he was like, oh, okay, you know. So it was very important. So we always included them, the custodial staff, in all our discussions with the principals and some of the teachers.
Great. All right, so we're going to move on, just for the sake of time. And so here are some pictures from Springfield of some of the students eating breakfast. It's funny when we're used to seeing the little ones eating, and it's seeing a young man eating his breakfast that morning. So successes, the bottom line is, I guess the biggest success is what? More kids eating breakfast at your schools.
Absolutely. Our participation, most schools are now 80% or over. And we got some grants because of that, and we get grant money from the EOS Foundation because of our high participation. But the kids, they just loved it, all the age groups, because A, the older kids no longer had to pay for breakfast at Dunkin' Donuts, and B, when they saw all the variety we provide and like hot meals in the wintertime and all, and they were anxious to get to school. Excuse me. And the principal said the attendance was better. Nobody was loitering in the halls. So it was like a win-win situation for everybody.
Right. Yeah, and a lot of these high schools and middle schools have elementary schools feeding into them that have been doing this for years. So it's kind of, you know, what they're expecting anyway. So I think it makes a lot of sense. And Zenia and Allison, anything, you know, any key successes or takeaways from Dallas?
Well, same here. Student attendance, increase in students' attentiveness, students' achievement. All these data has shown that the district has improved since this BIC program was implemented, and that's why all the schools in our district are now in the program. The other thing that I consider a success is the fact that many districts come here to Dallas ISD just to see our model and to do or try to implement the program in their districts as well. I think that is very rewarding also.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then any key challenges that you feel that, you know, something that you've learned from in your experience that could help others?
Just the biggest challenge for us is getting mostly the teachers on board, because, again, they didn't want to do that accountability thing. But when they saw how the kids better behaved, and it was now working to their advantage to have breakfast in the classroom, and some of them even do breakfast after the bell. So while the students are finishing their breakfast, they're, you know, writing things on the board or giving assignments, or the younger, like the elementary, they might be reading to them or something like that. So they saw that it was a much calmer atmosphere, and so it did work out much better than the, you know, mass confusion in the cafeteria and then, you know, running through the halls and everything. So that's how we got most of them on board, just by experiencing it.
And how about in Dallas?
Well, one of the biggest challenges here has been the training for the teachers, because it's such a big district, and actually Allison worked in the training this year. Would you share with them what did we do to do the training for all the teachers?
So for our training, we actually recorded a video that came with a quiz, and it was sent out through Google Docs as a form, and that way they didn't have to come to our facility. It didn't interrupt their schedule. And then we also knew who took the quiz for the training, so that we can make sure every teacher actually took the training and understood it. And also, we also train on site for our staff, and a lot of the supervisors will meet at the beginning of the year with all of the school staff before school started, and they'll make sure that they understand what can become a reimbursable meal, because we want to make sure that we are only crediting reimbursable meals and that we're relying on the teachers to be the ones to serve it for us, because it is delivered to the classroom.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, before we get too far into wrapping up the webinar, we're getting close to the top of the hour. We do have a couple of questions that hadn't been answered throughout, and I want to just make sure we have an opportunity to highlight them. There was a question from both Dallas and Springfield have free breakfast for all students as part of CEP. Do either of you have any schools that you're running breakfast in the classroom where it is not already free for students?
No, all of our schools, even our schools that are charter or out of the district, are all CEP now.
Okay. Okay. And Dallas?
Same here. We are community eligibility.
Well, maybe this might not apply to your district, but maybe you might have a strategy. So Jan was asking, how can you run your POS or collect your ID numbers if you offer breakfast in the classroom and students have to pay for their meals? Is there anything that you could suggest to her?
Well, in Springfield, one thing we do, like at lunchtime, the students will have cards. So in that case, if the student was there that day, they could put them in, because our bags have like big windows in the front for paperwork or whatever. So they could put those cards in, and then the our accountability person down in the kitchen could enter those numbers, and those are the kids that would be charged.
Mm-hmm. And then return them back to them before lunch, type of thing.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It could be some logistical issues there, but I think it could work with the collecting of the cards or some type of ID mechanism and being able to deliver it back. And then the next question related to how does breakfast in the classroom impact or prevent obesity? What we find historically is that when students eat a school breakfast, whether it's in breakfast in the classroom or in some other mechanism, they're eating the components that are healthy components of a school breakfast, and then they're not eating other items that might not be as healthy. And it's highly regulated by the USDA in terms of the quantity of food, the calories, the types of foods, the whole grains, the fruits, low-fat dairy, and so all of those things help to include and reduce the possibility of obesity. And it's important to be able to start the body well-fed to help increase metabolism and get students started in the day. So all of those lead into helping to prevent obesity. One more question. Can you have breakfast in the classroom and second chance breakfast programs in K through 12? The school is thinking about doing breakfast in the classroom at lower grades and second chance for the upper grades. So it sounds like it's one school offering two different types of models. Anybody have any thoughts to suggest for Norma?
I don't think that would work in Springfield because once the kids start their day, they have to go from class to class to class. And even the elementary schools, sometimes they leave their class to go to a science class or a gym class, something like that. So I think once the day started, I can't really see them wanting to break up the day for having a second chance breakfast. If we have kids that come in late, then we just send them down to the cafeteria to get a breakfast, like up until 10 o'clock, because we start some of our lunches like 10:30, 11. So if they come in as late as 10, they just send them down to the cafeteria and they give them a breakfast there.
Similar to what you said, we also have latecomers come down to the cafeteria to get a meal. We don't have second chance meals right now, but always if a student is late and it's before 10 o'clock, they can come down and get that reimbursable breakfast.
So as we get to the top, we are just a little past the top of the hour, and I just want to help wrap it up. I will be sharing out this video from Dallas from their middle school principal that was one of the huge positive forces to make breakfast in the classroom part of the secondary schools, and share that link out with everyone. And then also, you know, Action for Healthy Kids has resources through our Game On program, which you can find activities that will help implement school wellness in your schools, whether it be healthy food choices or increasing physical activity opportunities. And this is just what Game On is and a little bit more about it. But you'll find activities in our Step 4 related to breakfast in the classroom, as well as second chance breakfast, that you can get a little bit more information on as well. And we also work to help schools become recognized as Healthy U.S. Schools Challenge Smarter Lunchroom Initiative recognized, and we help work with Alliance for a Healthier Generation to be Healthy Schools recognized. So getting recognized is a huge piece of our puzzle to help schools become health-promoting schools. We have additional resources from our state coordinators. We offer monthly webinars, whether it be on school breakfast or in other areas of school wellness. And then also we have grants. You can look for our grants in early February, but right now we do still have a few startup grants to help get breakfast in the classroom started in your school. So if you have interest in those, you can contact me. You can follow us for more tips, activities for your schools, for your homes, through Facebook and all the other different social medias. And if you haven't already, we highly encourage you to take the Every Kid Healthy Pledge to make sure that you're, A, receiving all the great information and resources on a monthly basis through our newsletters, but more importantly, to show that you support the idea that every child has the opportunity to be healthy. Thank you, Zenny and Allison from Dallas ISD. Thank you, Kathy Kelly from Springfield, Massachusetts. We really appreciate all the insight and time that you've taken to share with us what happened at your school. And if you have any questions that were not answered, I'll be following up with you. And feel free to connect with me after if you have more questions. Look for your email tomorrow with your tips and strategies and all the recordings and handouts. Thank you so much and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Usamos